please take a seat as best you can or stand to the back of the room. This time, would you please turn all your mobile devices or audible devices so off or silent so they don't interrupt the proceedings of this meeting. We're going to go ahead and call to order the October 11 meeting of the Paulding County Planning Commission. At this time, I will entertain a motion with regard to, has everybody had a chance on the Planning Commission to review the minutes from the previous session of this body? Any concerns, edits, comments? At this time, I'll entertain a motion with regard to those minutes.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve from Mr. Lowe. I have a second from Mr. Henson. All in favor? Motion passes 5-0 and 1. What we will do is we will start with the agenda. Mr. Robinson will call the first applicant, and with each subsequent application, the applicant themselves will come forward, present their application. You have 15 minutes to present. You will direct all comments to the chair, that is me. Any questions from the Planning Commission to the applicant or to any subsequent speaker does not count against their time, neither do questions that may come from the Board of Commissioners. You have 15 minutes total, so you may use all of that time, or you may reserve some for rebuttal, or if you have others that wish to speak on behalf of the application, you may have them come up and do so. At the exhaustion of that 15 minutes, you will take your seat. I will then open up the opportunity for opposition or anybody having questions, comments, or concerns regarding the application. You will come forward, you will sign in, you will state your name, and you will address your comments to the chair. Again, there's 15 minutes for that. So if there's a line of people that want to speak, first person, please be considerate of those behind you, or you may elect to have someone speak on your behalf. There's 15 minutes total for that presentation. This is a recommending body regarding the zoning and appropriate use of property, that's proposed use for property that's in question with each application that we hear. Other than the last item on the agenda, which is a public hearing for the Hiram zoning ordinance, all other applications will be forwarded to the Board of Commissioners meeting at 2 o'clock today. If you have an interest in those applications as they are heard by the Board of Commissioners, which is the governing body for Paulding County, the applicant must be present for it to be heard, but if you have any interest in it, you would need to be present at the 2 o'clock meeting for that public hearing. Mr. Robinson.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Our first application, 2019-15Z, is application by Jason M. Flatt to rezone approximately 45.95 acres from R2 suburban residential to A1 agricultural for animal care facility. Property is located in land lot 209, District 19, Section 3. It's on the south side of Vincent Mountain Road, west side of Crawford Road. It's in Commission Post 2. Staff has recommended approval with 3 stipulations that are printed and available. And we have also received the last I counted was over 500 emails with support, about 15 to 20 emails in opposition. We've received correspondence and letters and articles in opposition and several visits to the office and phone calls in opposition, also in support. The applicant is present, and
Larry, the applicant will please come around, sign in, state your name, and address your comments to the chair. Prior to him doing so, I would also advise that if anyone is interested in understanding how to participate in a public meeting, the rules for that should be right outside the door or possibly on the table in the back of the room. You can take that and read that at your leisure. There are a couple of chairs down front here, ma'am, if you want to have a seat since you're having to carry a child.
Well, I just figured in case it gets fussy, if I'm
Okay.
close by the door, then I can try to make sure I'm not interrupting everybody.
All right.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Good morning. My name is Jason Flatt. I'm the founder and president of Friends to Forlorn Pit Bull Rescue. We've been licensed Pit Bull Rescue in Dallas, Georgia. Just celebrated our 10th year anniversary on October 9th. Looking to purchase this property. It's contingent based on the zoning hearing today. We're looking to expand to build a facility to meet the needs of the community. We're not just a pit bull rescue. We don't just take in pit bull dogs. We've established ourselves as an animal welfare organization in this community. We've aided animal control in many ways. Anytime that there's an issue that they don't have the budget for, a stray animal's hurt, we've picked up the tab, provided medication, and most importantly, we've provided over 6,500 spay surgeries free of charge to the public. It included vaccinations. We've considerably dropped the animal control population and the euthanasia rate here in this county. Pretty decent numbers. Just this month, we've done over 450 surgeries for this community. Like I said, we're looking to expand to a more remote location. It's taken us 2.5 years to find property that we thought was conducive to what we were looking to do. The property is approximately 46 acres. We're looking to utilize probably about 4 acres of it. The rest will be a buffer and green space. My number one concern is the safety of my animals and the safety of the community. Anybody that's been out to my facility, our yards that we have now are 8-foot, 9-gauge chain link fencing. They've been pulled with a bobcat. There's 1 foot of inverted wire so animals can't get out on top. I've also spent a lot of money pumping 2 feet of concrete below each kennel, each yard, so the animals can't dig out. My animals are always inside. They're never left outside unattended. There's always somebody there. There will be somebody there 24 hours a day. Our dogs are inside. They're not outside. This will not be a public facility. This will be a private facility. We're not looking, there won't be an increase of traffic. I want it as remote as possible. As far as the buffer goes and the sound and the noise, we're not planning on removing any trees except for clearing for the buildings that we need. I'm planning on keeping as much green space as possible. I'm not a fan of removing natural habitat. Like I said, we've never, in all the years that we've been at our facility, I think it's coming up on 8 years, I'm right around the corner from animal control. I've never had an animal control call to my house. Never had a 911 call to my house. I've never had an instance of my dogs getting loose. Since we were interested in this property, I've spent a lot of time in that area. I'll go to the property, I'll sit there and I'll answer my emails and I'll do my administrative work, answer my phone calls. I sat there the other night, had my dinner in my car, and I was there on Crawford Road for over 2 hours. In the time that I was there, only 2 cars passed. So I don't think that it gets any more remote than that. Everything else in the area is zoned agricultural. There's a pasture behind me with cattle. The land next to me is just vacant land that's overgrown with kudzu. The land across the street as well. It's the only thing that I heard the other night was beagles howling and gunshots. So I don't think that there's a more remote area that's available in Paulding County. People say, why do I want to stay in Paulding County? I've built some roots here. I've lived here for 14 years now. And over the past 6 years, our spay-neuter program has provided over 6,500 surgeries for this community. My veterinarians in this community, my board members live within the community, and it's a community that I've grown to love, and I call it home now. So I don't want to uproot my operation. My network is here, and it's a network of a lot of people that do a lot of good for this community. We've spent over $600,000 in the last 5 years for this community. Not only animals do we support, we've done a lot of food pantries, help people out, given vaccines. We're about to put on a vaccine clinic for all of Paulding County in March, working very closely with animal control. We're going to hand out free vaccines stop the spread of disease and keep people from, a lot of people here can't afford to take care of their animals. Like I said, we don't discriminate. I fix dogs, I fix cats, I've taken in donkeys, I've taken in horses, pigs. It's not just pit bulls. The problem is everybody hears the word pit bull and sets them off. People are afraid of what they don't know. We've never had an incident. We don't just adopt out dogs to anybody. Our adoption process is pretty severe. We require a home visit, a vet check. What I mean by a vet check, we check with your veterinarian to make sure that you take care of your animals. Before that, we do property record checks. We do employment checks. 85% of our applications for adoption are denied. We're not a fly-by-night organization. I'm not looking to push dogs out. We want to make sure that every home is right for every animal. As far as lighting goes, some people are concerned about the lighting. Like I said, I'm going to have a 40-acre buffer. I don't think that that's going to be a concern. As far as loose dogs go, that's my number one concern. I don't have loose dogs. We're going to have a perimeter fence around our facility, plus each yard will be secure. I noticed something also in that community. Every time I'm over there, there's dogs running loose somewhere, or someone's posted online within that Vincent Mountain area that there's a missing dog. In the last month or so, since I've been paying attention to it, I think it's 16 dogs have been missing in that area. That's not going to happen with our dogs. I'm considerate now with my neighbors. My lighting is never pointed towards their houses. My lighting is all inverted into the yards, and it'll be the same at this facility. It will be a state-of-the-art facility, and like I said, it's not going to be open to the public. It's going to be a private facility that'll be staffed 24 hours a day. If you could look at the site plan, I think it pretty much tells you the way that it is. The other thing that I want to bring up, in Paulding County, the way that the ordinances are written, there's no limit to the amount of animals that you can have. If you have over 2/3 of an acre, the way that's written, 2/3 of an acre under, I think the limit is 5 animals. The zoning actually protects people. It gives me setbacks. I have to be 200 feet off of the property. If I bought that property and zoned it residential, and I built a big house, and I'm a foster home for my rescue, I can have as many animals as I want, according to the ordinance here in Paulding County, and I wouldn't have to have any setbacks or any buffers. So by me changing the zoning to agricultural, it basically puts a little bit more of some standards, makes it a little harder for me, but it makes it safer for everybody else. But I just want to assure everybody that safety of the animals in the community is my number one concern. It's not going to be a piece of property where there's thousands of pit bulls running loose. Some of the commissioners have been out to my facility. They can attest to the cleanliness and the safety precautions that are put in place. I don't think that that's going to be an issue. I don't think there's a better area for me within this county. And I hope that it puts people at rest, that I'm not looking to create, a situation where I'm going to put anybody in harm's way. If anything, I alleviate the burden for animal control, and I support the community. If anything should happen, where if we build this facility and the rescue operation doesn't work out, we're a nonprofit organization. I would probably end up donating that building back to the county to use. It's going to be a state-of-the-art facility. I'm not going to pack hundreds of animals in there. That's not what I do. We're looking to build a 10 to 15,000 square foot building. That's what we're looking to do on all of that property. And we'll probably house 50 to 60 dogs.
Say that again, please.
We'll probably house about 50 to 60 dogs. We're a foster home based organization. My goal is to get these dogs ready from the pounds and get them into homes so that they can get adjusted to family life and get them adopted out into the proper homes so that we can save more. I'm not a quantity type of person. I'm a quality type of person. Okay. I think I've said everything that I need to say. If anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you very much, sir. I will start out with asking you, familiar with the three stipulations presented by the county staff, and you're agreeable to those?
Yes.
This time, I will have any questions from the planning commission to the applicant.
So this property, you're not gonna live on this property, nobody else is gonna live on it but the dogs, right?
No, I'll be there.
Well, if it's zone agricultural,
Right.
how are you gonna have a
No,
residence?
I'll
on
be
that?
in the area.
You gonna be at,
There'll be somebody working 24 hours a day on that property. There will be somebody there 24. It will be manned 24 hours a day.
Are you planning to keep the existing facility in operation?
For as long as it's necessary. We'll probably just keep it as a retirement home for a lot of the dogs are older and they won't be around. The other thing is we're not looking to build tomorrow. It's going to probably be at least 3 years before we break ground on something. Unless you guys want to donate and give us a couple $1 million. SavingPitBulls.org.
Good commercial.
Thank you.
And again, I had you repeat something during your statement where you said 50s, because to me, I almost heard you say 15 to 16 dogs, and there's a far cry different. But
50 to 60.
60, I got that. So that's the
Part of
reason
my
I
southern
asked.
accent.
That's all right. That's all right. Now, my question regarding this, would you be willing to stipulate those numbers as far as a limit to the number of dogs you would house, or is that going to be counterproductive to what you do?
I mean, I bought enough. We're trying to buy enough space so that we can meet the needs. I'd like to have some room for expansion, but the expansion will never be beyond our capacity to take care of these animals.
And some of the things that I have read and understood as far as critiques or concerns that people have named would be, you mentioned the lighting, you said everything would be inverted to the facility, so you would never be, you would have the hooded lights so that there's not an ambient light going out into the woods, or you're not going to be trying to shine lights into your, if there are neighbors, any neighbors would not be disturbed by those. I mean, all that is going to be focused entirely on the facility.
Right.
Your dogs are mainly housed inside.
They are housed inside.
Okay.
They are housed inside. The lights go on. I finish up about 11 o'clock at night, letting the dogs out. The lights go off.
Have you ever had a dog to escape?
Mm-mm.
Okay, I thought you said that, but I wasn't sure.
No.
I wanted to question that.
No.
Well, I know you said you've had no calls from animal control.
No calls from animal
No
control.
code enforcement issues
No. I'm inspected by the Department of Agriculture every year.
at your current facility.
Every year, I post my inspection. We pass with flying colors.
Are there any other questions to the applicants from the planning commission?
Yeah, I have a few. So you state this is a state-of-the-art facility. Is it like an open barn, or is it gonna be closed? Is it gonna be a metal building? What's the typical construction? What's your intent?
We're still in the planning stages of it, so I can't commit as to the structure. It'll probably be a steel building. It'll be insulated, soundproofed. Each dog will have a minimum of a 10x6 run on the inside, separated, proper drainage. I'm big on cross-contamination and cleanliness. Each dog will have a 40-foot run that's individual, half covered, half cement, and half open, half grass. There'll be a medical facility inside for a veterinarian that, you know, take care of our animals. There'll be indoor play areas. A lot of the dogs that we take in, unfortunately, have experienced some sort of trauma, whether they're hit by a car or accidents. A lot of them are orthopedic cases that require surgery. So we plan on having a therapy pool and underwater treadmill to help rehab these dogs. A lot of the dogs that we take in have a lot of medical issues. That's what we're known for.
So how do you find out, or where do you get most of these dogs from? How do you obtain them?
County facilities. I get 1,500 emails a day, approximately 300 phone calls and 300 messages. Whether we like it or not, pit bulls are the most popular breed in the state. If you go to any pound, anywhere between 60 to 85% of the animals that come in there are pit bull or pit bull mixes. So there's a need.
Now, did you state that you are going to install a perimeter fence or not?
There'll be a perimeter fence. I mean, I can't, not the whole property, but it'll be around the facility. Yeah, and there'll be inner fences, interior fences as well.
Okay.
Minimum of 8 feet.
Okay, I noticed on your proposed plan here that you have the barn,
Mhm.
the first barn, 200 foot off the property line. You're gonna have 40-plus acres. I just wonder why you didn't put it in the center of the property.
That's just the site plan. The barn is not going to be for dogs. I've got a couple of rescue donkeys.
So the barn's not for dogs?
No,
So which one of the buildings will the dog?
that would be the main building,
The future construction?
the one that says main building,
Okay, main building, okay.
and we just left areas for future construction.
So it's about 250 or 275 off of the property line, looks like. My question still is, why would you not move that more to the center of the property?
We could move it. I'm not opposed to that.
It
It all
seems-
depends on utilities and the ground and.
Yeah, it seems to me like that would buffer out, be a better buffer for your neighbors and all, since you have that much property. So you've got future construction, these other buildings, so how many dogs do you think that would put you up to? I mean, you have a business plan or
We're in the planning stages. We're not, I don't want to limit myself. But like I said, the dogs will be housed. I'm very big on space. I will never take on more animals than we can handle. Hopefully we'll grow to meet more of the need of the community. Hopefully one day we won't have to.
so what is your statistics about dogs you take in versus the ones you adopt back out or rehome back out of the facility?
Depending, it varies at different times. We average about 75 animals in the rescue at any given time. We adopt out anywhere between 100 and 150 a year, and some won't be adopted out.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask you. Do you find some that's just not suitable to adopt out?
Some are hospice cases, medical cases that are just going to live their life out. I've gotten calls from animal control, and they'll have a dog full of tumors, loaded with cancer that's older in age, and rather than it die in the pound, I'll take it home and I'll love on it and make sure its last few days are going to be okay before we have to help it cross. So there are some dogs that won't be adopted out. There are some dogs that behaviorally aren't right, and if they're not right, they stay with me. I don't put them out into the public, if that's what you're asking.
Okay, or some of them just simply too aggressive to adopt back out?
Some of them have issues, but I've never had a dog that I couldn't handle. We work very closely with a trainer. We assess each dog. We provide training for our fosters. And if there's an animal that we feel is aggressive, it won't leave.
Okay, that's all I had, thanks.
have one other question also.
Mr. Leggett?
Let me get this, see if I got this straight. You're saying that you're gonna be building a building to house these dogs. Is it gonna be heated and air conditioned? They're gonna be contained completely in this building?
Yes.
Will be no noise?
No noise. I mean,
If they're enclosed in a
If it-
building that's heated and insulated,
Yes.
like you're saying, there shouldn't be any noise.
if they're out in the yard and they bark, there's going to be a little noise, but I don't think that it's going to be anything to be of concern. The building is going to be constructed so that'll be taken into consideration. Yes, it'll be heating and air. Every building,
Because I've lived within 2 miles of a rescue house before, and you could hear the dogs 2 miles away during the day barking. Of course,
I live right now. If I cut through the woods, I'm about 0.5 miles from animal control. I can cut through the woods and get to animal control in a heartbeat. I hear the animal control dogs more than you hear my dogs.
and that's my point. That
Yeah, my dogs are
some
not
of the
outside. They're
area
not.
neighbors are going to be hearing these dogs. And
With 40 acres and trees all around it and the building being insulated, most of the time my dogs are pretty quiet unless somebody comes on my property. My dogs are pretty quiet, and like I said, the commissioners have been out there before. And like if you pull up to my house and you walk in my house, my dogs will bark initially for about 5 minutes until they calm down, and then it's pretty quiet. At nighttime, I can hear a pin drop.
So you would be okay with putting in as another stipulation of the zoning that you put the main building in the center of the property?
Yeah, structurally, if it's good, if the soil's right and we can build there, yeah.
You could word that as close to the center as allowed
Yeah, as
by
close to the
construction
center as
standards.
possible,
Yeah.
yes. But you would be okay with that
I'm
stipulation?
all right with that.
What about future building sites?
It all
Is that
depends.
gonna be closer to the center or closer to the ones you have in operation?
I want to be as far away from, the public as possible. Like I said, it's a private facility. I don't want people on my property, and I don't want to bother my neighbors. That's why I picked this area. It's pretty remote. So the future buildings will also be taken into everything will be taken into consideration, and like I said, they'll be structurally sound. And providing if there's a spring or something that we find the dead center, I'm not going to put a building on it. I'll be honest with you.
Sure.
And if it's going to cost me $1 million to, core through bedrock, it's not conducive to putting a building there. So, providing everything's okay, I'm not opposed to keeping it, central.
Are there any other questions from the planning commission?
Are there any dogs outside at all?
The dogs go out about 4 to 5 times a day. They're not kept outside at all. No dogs live, if that's what you're asking, no dogs live outside.
There are no runs, no
No.
dog runs outside?
No. No dogs are left outside ever unattended.
Any other questions from the planning commission?
I have one.
Ms. Fitzgerald?
You do provide sufficient training for these dogs, right?
Yes. Yes.
And the owners?
Yes. Like our fosters, we have, I think, somebody correct me, the 28th, is that it, with Frank? The pack walk training? Is it the 28th? Last Saturday of the month. My fosters have a leash training class to make sure that the dogs can properly walk on leash in public. We provide training for them. You're welcome to attend if you want.
Are there any questions from the Board of Commissioners?
I've been at animal control numerous times, and I would say 70 or 80% of the dogs there, Jason, are, you can see the pit bull in them. Are they just easier to adopt out in animal control, or you also?
Well, here's the thing. My adoption requirements are a lot stricter than animal control's. I have the flexibility to say I'm full and I can stop taking in dogs. Animal control doesn't have that. They don't have the resources that I have, they don't have the budget that I have, and they don't have the capabilities that I have to ensure. They can't do home visits. They can't do follow-ups. They can't do vet checks. So their adoption policies are a lot more lenient than mine. So they might have an easier time adopting out a dog. I'm not in this business to. I'm in this business to protect the breed, a breed that I love. I'm not looking to have to rescue the dog a second time. So I want to make sure that every home that we put this dog in is a final home. And sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes we take dogs back. I took a dog back after 9.5 years. So once it's our dog, it's always our dog. But like I said, our adoption policies are a lot stricter than most other rescues and definitely most animal control facilities.
Mr. Davis? Yeah, are there any other questions to the applicant? We'll come right back to that.
Mr. Flatt, when I was out there, I guess it was maybe a month ago, I noticed that each dog had a human with them when they were outside. Is that always the case? The dog always has a human?
There's always at least 1 or 2 people there. You know, we have volunteers and we have a paid staff. I mean, we've grown enough that we can have full-time staff and full-time employees to handle the dogs. So there's always somebody. The dogs are never left outside unattended. There's always somebody there.
Any other questions for the applicant? Mr. Flatt, you can take your seat. You may be called back up.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Davis, you had a question for staff? Mr. Robinson?
Jason mentioned about current zoning versus proposed zoning, residential, existing, and the limits on the number of animals. Can you confirm what he was talking about there, and maybe elaborate as necessary?
Absolutely. The request is go from residential to agricultural. The way I understood the explanation from Mr. Flatt was no matter if you had residential or agricultural, if you just got household pets, you could have as many dogs as possible. There's no limitation under the zoning ordinance for that.
So it's correct?
So that is correct.
Statement that the rezoning puts restrictions on him that wouldn't be in place with?
For the facility, for example, the rescue or kennel or anybody that's operating a training or boarding, it does put higher and above standards for those facilities that would house dogs.
Any other questions to staff? All right, at this time, is there anyone here, in addition to the applicant, that would wish to speak on behalf of the application? He has 5 minutes remaining. He can use that time for rebuttal, or it can be used for people to speak on its behalf. If you would come to the lectern, sign in, state your name, and address your comments to the chair.
Just a few things that needed to be addressed. My name's Michael Glassberg. I've
Go ahead
lived
and
in,
sign in, sir, if you would.
okay, I've lived in Paulding County for 14 years, and I found my home. I've known Jason and his brother and his family for many years. I know the reputation from New York. They're wonderful people. They're honest, and they know what they're doing. One of the questions that was asked is the noise level. Pit bulls don't howl. Well, they do a little bit, but not as much as the pound. I can hear them from my house, and I'm down on halfway down the road there, so I can hear them. I cannot hear Jason's dogs. As addressing pit bull problems, when Jason releases a pit bull, it's not one of the street dogs. It's not one of the fighting dogs. He'll keep those. The man has a heart where he wants to find not only, I'm sorry, I've got a sore throat, not only places for the dogs, but people who need dogs. And there are a lot of people who go to the pound, they adopt a dog, it ends up back in the pound, it ends up on the street dead. I picked up several that came from the pound. People just abandon them. His dogs don't get abandoned. He matches the dog and the person beautifully. I've donated, my family has donated, everybody I know has donated. I know there may be some minor problems where you'll hear the dogs bark, but neighbors' dogs bark, and people make noise. Out there's more gunshots than what you're gonna hear from the dogs. So I'm just asking for some consideration. This is something that Paulding County needs. We're about to grow, as everybody knows, we're about to go boom. This county's gonna get huge. And as it does, we're gonna need more and more and more help from the community as opposed to just the public dog pound and smaller public places. Everybody needs to chip in, and this is one of the things that starts our county as a family. Everybody can help. People can go volunteer. It's a beautiful thing. I can envision this. I think it's going to be park-like. It's not going to be what people are thinking, just a big building with a bunch of dogs in it. And I know him too well. And I just hope you consider everything and his reputation. You can see his family sitting here, a small portion of it. I think he could have had 1,000 people here in a heartbeat. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Could you repeat your last name for me again?
Glassberg, Glassberg.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on behalf of this application? If you please come in, sign in, state your name, and address your comments to the chair.
I'm Kirsten Liberty, and I just want to say three things. Oh, yes, I'll sign it. Hang on. Three things. First of all, he alluded to it a little bit, but Jason is not just a pit bull rescue. This isn't about the breed. This is about the type of person that is coming in and making this facility available to help animal control and to help our population of, unhoused pets. Jason gave a check recently for $130,000 to our animal control to help spay and neuter cats and dogs and whatever else needed to be done. I think that should be considered when you're looking at the type of person that is coming in to build a facility like this. If you were at the Board of Commissioner meeting, they approved it. It was great. It was amazing. $130,000 will do a lot toward animals. The second thing I want to say is this. Between Jason and his friend, they made 9 trips, either personally or by proxy, down after Hurricane Michael with hurricane supplies down to South Georgia. Pet food, people food. I know because we carried two of those trailers full down there. 9 trips. When local businesses weren't giving and they weren't donating, Jason and his crew got mobilized and they made 9 trips down to South Georgia. To me, that shows what kind of character and what kind of person he is, because he wasn't rescuing dogs at that point. He was rescuing people. So when you're looking at a facility like this, you have to look at land use. Is this an appropriate use for the land? Yes, it is. It is. It's 46 acres in the middle of nowhere. He's wanting to be as amiable as he can be to the neighbors and to build right in the center of it. He's trying to be the best neighbor that he can be. He's a good citizen, he's a good person, and he's done a lot for Paulding County. So when you're recommending whether or not this is an appropriate use for the land, I believe it is. And I think he's done a lot for us, and we should consider that. That's all.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak on behalf of this application? If you're going to comment, you need to go to the lectern, sign in, state your name, and address your comments. Well, that would be next. That will be next. We'll get to that. So, yeah. Sign in, state your name, and address your comments to the chair. There are about 2 minutes left.
My name is Misty Bundrum, and I am a resident of Paulding County and also almost 2 decades in the real estate business here in Paulding County. I chair the RPAC, and I am a huge private properties advocate as well as pit bull. I don't know him. I have never met him. I heard about this last night But as a citizen and as a realtor, I am 100% for private property rights. And if he wants to impose higher restrictions and guidelines on himself to put this facility in, I think that shows to the character of his business, and not only of his business, but of himself. I had a meeting yesterday with Economics and Development. We're forecasted to be at 250,000 citizens in Paulding County within the next 3 to 5 years. Right now, we're at about 100,000. If you think this facility is needed right now with 100,000 residents in Paulding County, you wait until this road gets finished and we reach the 250,000 people that we're expected to reach. So why not go ahead and get this started in the beginning phases, where we can make sure that we have someone with character and a history to make sure that not only the citizens are protected, but the dogs are protected, and that private property rights in Paulding County are protected. And we show them that we are a welcoming community and not just a bedroom community anymore.
That is going to conclude that portion of the public hearing. We are going to now open up for discussion or questions from those that may have questions, comments, or concerns, or those that would wish to speak in opposition to this application. Anybody wishing to do so, please come to the lectern, sign in, state your name, address your comments to the chair. Again, if you have a number of people behind you, if you would please make sure that you're considerate of their time as well, or you may elect someone to speak on your behalf. Again, you'll have 15 minutes.
Morning.
Good morning.
My name's Don Hawkins. I live on Roberson Road, Rockmart address, but we're Paulding County. Roberson Road runs off of Crawford Road, and that puts us in very close proximity to this proposed facility. I don't question Mr. Flatt's sincerity or his competence or any of that, or his love for the pit bulls, but we are talking about a pit bull facility. And as a resident of the area, which I don't consider it to be remote, there are a number of folks here that have properties that are very, very close proximity to the facility that Mr. Flatt is planning to put in. And we do have a number of concerns. I've researched prior to coming in some things on his website concerning him, concerning the Friends to the Forlorn Facebook site. And there's a lot of anecdotal comments concerning the good behavior of pit bulls. And I'm sure there are some very nice pit bulls out there, some very gentle, some very well trained, some very well behaved, but the facts out there also kind of contrast that a little bit. I've done a lot of research on this, and I'm just going to state some facts that are not anecdotal. There are 15 appellate court decisions concerning the danger of pit bulls. I think we dropped a document off a few days ago concerning that, but 15 appellate court decisions that affirm the danger of pit bulls. In 2018, dogs killed 36 Americans. Pit bulls contributed to 72% of these deaths. 72%. From 2005 to 2018, all dogs killed 471 Americans. Pit bulls contributed to 66%, 311 of those deaths. Combined pit bulls and Rottweilers contributed to 76% of these deaths. And in a retroactive review of 1,616 dog bite injuries over a 4-year period treated at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, there were 46 breeds of dogs identified. The 3 most prevalent were 38.5% pit bull, 13% mixed breeds, and 8.1% Labrador retrievers. Now, of the mixed breeds, 66 total 11 were pit bull mixes, 12 were lab mixes, and 4 lab pit bull mixes. And those three categories comprised 59.6% of all dog bites by mixed breeds treated at Children's Healthcare. That leaves just 40.4% scattered among the 43 remaining breeds studied. So now we move to year-to-date 2019 dog bite deaths in America. There's been 35, 12 involving pit bulls, 34.2%. 10 involving pit bull mix, 28.6%. That gives you a total of 62.8% of 35 deaths in America contributed to pit bulls or pit bull mix. 2 were involving German Shepherds and Shepherd mix, 1 involving a Doberman and 1 involving a Coonhound, which I found interesting. 5 involving undetermined mixed breeds. So it's a dangerous breed. The statistics are out there. This was all gleaned off of the internet, and as I mentioned, there's 15 appellate courts decisions across America that recognize the dangerousness of pit bulls. Our concerns, you know, I'm a resident out there. We're in very close proximity to his facility, and again, I kind of back away from his claim that it's a remote area. It really isn't. There's a number of homes along Crawford Road. There's a number of homes along Vincent Mountain. There's a subdivision just down the road with 20 to 30 homes in there with children. So it's not remote. And I've seen more than 2 cars go through there just sitting at the stop sign for a minute. So I'm not sure what time of day Mr. Flatt was there, but to see 2 cars could happen, I suppose. But our concerns are for injuries or even deaths in the event of an escaped animal. And I listened to Mr. Flatt and his precautions and all of that kind of thing. But things still do happen. And I want to back up just a minute to a personal story. My brother lives in Gainesville, Georgia, and 4 years ago, 3 pit bulls that were penned up in the backyard of his neighbor's house escaped and nearly killed a 71-year-old mailman. My brother and some neighbors were able to pull the mailman free, but he was hospitalized for months with injuries from these pit bull attacks. It was unprovoked. He was doing his job as a mailman. So, you know, that's personal. I remember that story well. I remember my brother talking about it. I remember him saying that he's never seen injuries like this man was inflicted with. So the dropping off of unwanted pit bulls while the facility's closed could be a possibility. Mr. Flatt stated someone will be there 24 hours a day, but will they be awake? Will the facility be open? You know, dog shelters, you know, people are known to just take them over and drop them off in the vicinity or tie them to a fence or something, hoping somebody will pick them up the next day. And many dogs are dropped off because they're not wanted by their owners. Question becomes, why are they not wanted by their owners? Do they not get along with the family, the friends, with other animals? A lot to consider. We're also concerned about the potential threat to our own pets or livestock in the event of an escape. Possibility of a noise or an odor factor affecting the quality of life in the neighborhood. Okay, we're concerned about that as well. There's been comments, some have said they hear noise, some have said they don't. We've heard talk of gunshots and other dogs barking out there. The gunshots don't go on all day long and all night long. Okay, it is a country area, not remote by any stretch, but there is shooting out there. But it's not all day, and it's not every day. And the possibility that the barking out there from whatever number of pit bulls Mr. Flatt intends, and he wasn't able to really commit to a number, could be loud. Odor, you know, what's going to be the sanitation out there? You know, what kind of system are they going to have to handle the waste from all these animals? And one other thing I want to address that's a concern, and I can do this from a little bit of a position of authority, is property values. Now, I'm a real estate appraiser by trade, by profession. And when we do a report, an appraisal report on the subject property, one of the things we're required to look at is, are there any negative external influences to the subject property? Now, what a negative external influence is something outside the property itself that could contribute to a devaluation of the property. And I can tell you, as an appraiser, that if an appraiser were appraising one of the properties that was anywhere within a half a mile to a mile of this facility, he would be required to report that as a negative external influence that could affect the value of the property that he's appraising. Now, there's no way of saying what that adjustment would be. It would definitely be a negative downward adjustment to the value of the property. But on a national average, that can represent 5 to 10% devaluation of the property involved, depending on the negative external influence. Now, having an unknown number of dangerous dogs in a facility near residential properties would definitely constitute a negative external influence. Questions we have, he may answer them down the road. He may have answered them already. Will there be trained personnel working there? How many animals will the facility be capable of sheltering, and what happens to any possible overflow? He mentioned that should the facility fail, that he would probably turn the property over to the county. The county want all those dogs? What happens to them? There have been, in researching, there have been failures of this type of facility. Yes, sir.
5 minutes remaining.
5 minutes. Okay, we'll wrap this up. Another question for him is, have there been any instances of bodily harm to his workers or neighbors, or of a similar facility? We're worried about guaranteeing that no escaping animal would harm someone on our property. Who do you call in the event of an escaped animal? 911, animal control, or the facility? Finally, the last thing I want to address is, again, as a real estate appraiser, we're also supposed to comment on the highest and best use of a piece of property that we are appraising. And what highest and best use is, the reasonable, probable, and legal use of vacant land or an improved property which is physically possible, appropriately supported, financially feasible, and that results in the highest value. In real estate appraisal, the market value of the property always depends on its highest and best use. The highest and best use of property is the reasonably probable use that results in the highest value. Highest and best use assumes that the market will view the value of the property in light of all its possible uses. So that brings up, is this facility reasonable and probable for this property? Is the facility legal for this property? Is it physically possible? Yeah, probably is. Is it appropriately supported? I don't know. I can't see the financial plan. He does not have a business plan in place yet, but is it financially feasible? And then finally, does it result in the highest and best use of the property? I don't really think so. As far as the county's concerned, right now the property is zoned R2 residential. They want to change it to A1 agriculture, but this is just an example. A residential subdivision on 46 acres consisting of homes built 4 to an acre, which would be quarter acre lots per home, would yield approximately 184 homes, which would bring into the county much more tax revenue than a nonprofit animal shelter, creating a much higher and better use for the land. Now, while I understand Mr. Flatt's love and concern for these dogs, and we all love dogs, I've had dogs my whole life. I put my last one down in August due to cancer and other health issues. 13-year-old lab mix, never bit a soul, so I know there's good dogs out there. I understand that. But there is a breed that is inherently dangerous. So we're just concerned not about his ability to handle this, but is there somewhere that is really more remote than our area to put them? And I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, sir. Sir, if you would like to step up to the lectern, sign in, state your name, and address your comments to the chair, you have about 3 minutes remaining.
3.
3.
I like him. Well, sorry. My name is Marcus Compton, and I do also live in that area. My family are pioneers of Paulding County. They primarily raised produce and livestock, poultry. We were affiliated through that to the property owners this facility is supposed to be built on. My understanding is this property is not, it may be Polk County, Paulding County, and I don't know where his part falls, but I think theirs has always been agricultural. And they raised cow. The guy that owned it, Mr. Dr. King, he was a veterinarian. So their intents for the property were like everybody else in the area. I've been there for over 50 years. And so I'm not probably totally informed, but I know some of the basics of agricultural. And I don't see how this facility, being nonprofit, agricultural to me is for profit. Well, nonprofit doesn't fit that. And I don't understand how a pit bull positively comes into agricultural. It's not a cow dog, it's not a butterfly farm, it's not a, how does it benefit an agricultural line of thought? I know they probably get inspected by the Department of Agriculture, but my restaurant industry does too. And convenience stores, their food facility gets inspected by their agricultural or whatever. So I don't understand how that fits in. But I got a few things to point out. He said 12,000 square foot facility, but he mentioned several buildings. He mentioned he himself will be there a lot, but he doesn't design how many people's going to be there in and out. He mentioned how he welcomed people to come to the facility, such he did when the training. But he also said he didn't want to bother other people's land, and he didn't want others on his land. So that's kind of contrary. Liability. If is a big word to be 2 letters. If something happens, who's liable? We all got to be responsible in some way. So I understand this property is not purchased. It's under the contingency this passes. So everything he said was probability. He'll probably donate it to the county. The county, under my experience, especially paying taxes, you're in the business to rent property or to whatever to get taxes, and not to take in donated land. So I don't know how that works. Gun noise, that's a part of agricultural. I don't think there's been enough good or bad information provided, especially on his behalf for business plan to go forward yet, ideally.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have the remainder of that minute if you want to come to speak. If you'd like to sign in, state your name and address your comments to the chair.
My name is Leslie Phillips. Good morning. My name is Leslie Phillips, and my husband Raymond Phillips and I live at 2066 Crossroads Church Road. We are approximately a 3-minute drive from this proposed facility. We have a small 22-acre hobby farm with 2 miniature donkeys, 7 sheep, 3 goats, 13 chickens, and a duck named Chuck. We could have purchased a home in downtown Dallas, but we chose to move to the quietness of the country. While Mr. Flats and his volunteers' intentions are good, my husband, myself, and many of our neighbors are very concerned and opposed to this proposed pit bull rescue facility. Although this is proposed to be private, there will be people that drop dogs off without notice or following the procedures. With 50 to 60 dogs, we do not believe that there will not be a noise issue from barking while they are outside. I'm sure that they will be outside a good bit because that would be inhumane to keep them indoors all the time. We are concerned about safety, property value, and if this gets out of hand and they do not abide by the regulations or the things that they have been promised today, like staffing, noise, number of dogs held there, noise, where will you be? Will you be there to help us with those issues? Finally, would you want this next door to you or your neighborhood? Thank you.
Thank you. That will conclude comments in opposition at this time. That was the 15 minutes allotted for it. Sir, are you wishing to speak in opposition?
In opposition, yes, sir.
We have run out of time, so if you will bear with me just a moment.
Yes, sir.
If the planning commission would like to hear any further comments from opposition, we would have to extend the time, but we would also have to offer additional time to the applicant. So at this time, if there's a motion, I will entertain for extending time by another 5 minutes. Does anyone want to make that motion? I'm not hearing it, so at this time, conversation is over. There was 1 minute remaining for Mr. Flatt, but I'm going to call you back around anyway. Mr. Flatt? If you would come back to the lectern, and we have some questions. Again, you have about 1 minute remaining from your time. If you would like to say something first before we get to questions.
One of the things that I didn't address was the odor. Right behind that property, a lot of cattle out there. We pick up after our dogs every time the dogs are out. They're in separate runs. Like I said, I'm a big stickler for cross-contamination. So we scoop those yards multiple times a day. And the waste is discarded properly. There's a pasture out back with I don't know how many hundred of cattle. I don't think that they pick up after them. So I don't think that the odor is a concern. As far as dogs getting out, they have a private community page on Vincent Mountain, private community page on social media on Facebook. I'm not a member of it, but some people in support of us are. I can show it to you. 18 missing dogs in the last month and a half running around that area. People reporting their dogs missing or out. There was a cow out the other day. So the concerns of my dogs running loose with my fencing and my stipulations that I'm going to put in, I don't think are a concern. It seems like you have a loose dog problem without me being there.
At this time, there are some questions that we need to ask you if you would remain at the
Sure.
lectern. Go ahead. Mr.
I'd
Dodd.
probably answer the missing dog problem. They probably fed the neighborhood coyotes.
Well, coyotes don't come around my house. They stay on the other side. But if they
From
did
the,
come, I'd feed them. They're my friends.
From those that made comment or had concerns about what you're proposing to do with the property, there were some questions that I generated a list of. If you don't mind, I'd like to go through those.
Sure.
Let's see. Will someone be, you said that someone will be there 24 hours a day at your operation. Will they be awake and receiving
Yes.
dogs during all those hours?
There will be a working shift 24 hours a day.
And they would be receiving dogs during that time?
We don't receive dogs.
Okay, explain.
We take our dogs in from facilities.
Okay. Well, the concern that was stated was that you, having the facility there would generate a potential for people to come by and just drop the dog off, assuming that they're going to be taken in, or you would collect them. Is there anything that you would do to mitigate that, or you could do to mitigate that?
There'll be a gate, there'll be a private facility. We're not gonna publicize where we are. In all the years that I've been at my current facility, I've had one person come to drop off a dog that was uninvited.
Okay. Now, questions you brought up in your own comments, and then questions were brought up subsequent to noise and odor. And I understand what you were saying about, you've got cattle behind you. I live across from from a farm myself. And yes, there's fragrance of nature all over the place.
Yeah, that chicken farm down the road doesn't smell too good either on a hot summer day.
However, your dogs will generate waste product. What do you do with it? How do you dispose of it?
In garbage bags, it's scooped, and then it's sent off through sanitation company.
Okay. And the personnel that you will have working there are trained as far as how to handle, they are dog handlers. And they are trained.
They're trained. We don't just hire people. They do working interviews. They have to work alongside me or my supervisor for a month trial. We won't let them on their own until we feel that they're ready.
Are there certifications they're required to have in order to?
There's no certifications. I could go online right now and get you any certification that you want if I pay $59.95. It doesn't mean anything. You could be certified.
Now, I have, in the years that you've been in operation at your current facility, have you or anybody working for you experienced any bodily injury from these dogs?
Yeah, I got bit. I've been bit.
But
Par for the course.
That's
Par for the course. Injured animals, hurt animals.
just a question that came up, so.
Yeah.
Now, I do have a couple of questions for staff, but before we do that, I want to ask if anybody else from the Planning Commission may have further questions for the applicant.
I do. The first building is going to be approximately house 50 to 60 dogs. And you also mentioned the possibility of having 2 additional houses built or barns built.
We're looking to put up a barn for the donkeys, a place of shelter for them, for the weather.
What would be the total number of dogs if you expand your facility to be on this property?
I don't know what the needs are going to be. I can't put an exact number on it. But if I put up 5 buildings, let's say I put up 5 10,000 or 12,000 square foot buildings, I wouldn't house any more than 50 to 60 animals per building. I don't see myself putting up 5 buildings.
Okay.
Like I said, it's going to be a long time before I raise the money to build this facility. I want to build it right. I'm not going to cut corners. So if it takes me 3 years or if it takes me 5 years, it's going to be built to my specifications, and I'm not going to forego the quality that I want for just to get it done. So it's not in the immediate future. It'll be at least 3 years.
Okay.
Or if anybody has a few million
So in
dollars.
3 years,
once
you
again.
could have somewhere between 150 and 180 dogs with 3 buildings?
150 within 3 years? No.
Within
No.
3 buildings?
Within 3 buildings?
Yes.
Possibly.
Okay.
Does your business as a nonprofit carry liability insurance?
A lot of it. Costs me about $8,000 a year.
Okay.
So if that answers the question, if something happens, who's liable? I'm liable.
Please direct your questions
Yeah,
to me.
I'm liable.
Okay.
Are there any more
organization is-
questions to the applicant from the Planning Commission?
I have a couple. So the perimeter fence, proposed perimeter fence, what would it encompass? Would it just be around the buildings that house the animals, or would it be around the parking lot as well? Or, I mean, what would be the approximate configuration
Like I said,
of it?
we're still in like the planning stages, so we haven't gone any further. For us to start to hire an architectural firm without owning the property is a little bit, I wouldn't want to incur that expense without owning the property. So we're still in the planning stage of it, but there'll be interior fencing for the yard area, and there'll be a fencing around all the buildings, so there'll be double fencing, at least double fencing.
Well, most things go back to the intent, and so I was just wondering if, how do you control, if you have a fence around, say, the parking lots and the buildings, all in one fence, how would you control people going in and out, and the safety of animals escaping out the fence? So I was going to ask you, would you be willing to make that additional stipulation, put in a perimeter fence?
On 46 acres?
Not on the whole 46 acres.
You guys want to
but
pay
just
for it? That's a lot of money, 46 acres, to put an 8-foot chain link.
I'm not talking about the whole
Yeah.
46 acres.
The whole facility is a lot.
Would you be
but
willing to make that an extra stipulation to put in a perimeter fence around the just the facilities?
We plan to do that.
Well, I know, would you be willing to make that additional stipulation into these 3 stipulations?
Well, we're going to do that, yeah. If you want to add it as a stipulation, I'm okay with it.
And also moving the proposed facilities or proposed construction to the center of the property as stable soil conditions dictate. Would you be willing to make that a stipulation?
I would be willing to, yeah, if it's conducive.
Okay, so that'd be 5 stipulations instead of 3.
You guys are making it rough.
Okay.
We had discussed, about the possibility of moving it more to the center of the property, provided that the building conditions would allow.
Right.
So, and that was the potential for the first stipulation we were discussing. So if you're all right with that,
Yeah.
we would add that as a stipulation. So
I'm all right
again,
with
it would be contingent upon the soils being appropriate for building a building.
Right. We just incurred about $7,000 worth of soil testing throughout the property.
So you have soil borings on the
Yeah.
property?
Yeah.
So what did they look like?
Pretty decent. I'm not an engineer, but from what I was told, they're good. Good to go.
Okay, so basically, typically over most of the site, the soils are,
It was the higher ground of the area off of Crawford Road that we were looking at. That's where our entrance would be,
okay.
not off of Vincent Mountain.
Mr. Palmer, he also stated that he'd be willing to put in the perimeter fence around the facilities as a stipulation as well.
Would you make a note of that, please?
I wanted to bring something up, if I still have that minute left, like 30 seconds of it. Everybody talked about the numbers of dogs and the bites. You look at the American Temperament Testing Society. Look at American Pit Bull Terriers. 87.4% of the ones tested passed with flying colors. It's higher than Labradors, right underneath Golden Retrievers. American Staffordshire Terriers, which is another dog that falls underneath the Pit Bull category, 86.5% of them passed American temperament testing. You could find statistics for anything.
Are there any other questions to the applicant from the Planning Commission? Board of Commissioners, Mr. Davis.
I do have one. There was a mention about overflow or too many dogs beyond capacity. If somebody calls you and says,
Non-issue.
I have a dog, can you take it, and you're full, what's the answer?
Sorry, I'm full and I have a waiting list. It happens every day right now. There is no overflow.
Thank you.
Board of Commissioners, any further questions? Thank you, Mr. Flatt. Question for staff. Mr. Robinson, would you please come up? Had a question brought up regarding the appropriate zoning category as it relates to kennels, dogs, those types of, zoning it agricultural. And I know the answer, but I'd rather staff state that.
Glad to explain that. I'm gonna come back here. This map represents the property being right here in the middle, being zoned residential. As I said earlier, you can have household pets, domestic animals. There's not a limitation on number of dogs or cats at a residential home in either the R2 or the A1 district. Now, to operate a dog shelter, kennel, facility, which would include training, boarding, placement, anything like that, in the residential category, it requires a special use permit and would be right back here at this. The option was for this application was to rezone it to agricultural, which the agricultural district as a permitted use allows commercial and private dog kennels, and it provided that the structures and runs and such are 200 feet from any property line.
That is an allowed use
It
under
is a
A1.
permitted use in agricultural district.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions from the planning commission to the staff regarding this application?
I have one question.
Mr. Henson?
What is the liability of Paulding County in this situation? I know Mr. Flatt has mentioned that he has total liability, but what is the liability of Paulding County if we approve this? And if a dog gets out and mauls somebody?
I'm going to refer to legal counsel.
Okay.
Mr. Henson, because this is a discretionary function, the county is going to have immunity
Okay.
for its zoning decisions.
Very good.
Are there any other questions to staff from the planning commission? Board of Commissioners? At this time, I will entertain a motion with regard to application 2019-15-Z. And again, there were the potential for adding 2 additional listed stipulations, 4 being to locate the facility's construction to the center of the property as allowed by soil conditions appropriate for building. This is
Motion to approve with the 3 stipulations printed.
Motion to approve with the 3.
With 3.
I have a motion to approve with the 3 listed stipulations from Mr. Lowe. Is there a second? I am not hearing a second, therefore the motion will fail. There's no second. So
Motion to approve with 5.
I have a motion to approve with the 5 listed stipulations. The 5th, remind me again, was the perimeter fence around the facility after it's constructed. Is that correct, Mr. Aston?
That's correct. Perimeter fence around the facility where it doesn't allow any animals to escape to the outside of the property.
All right, so with the 5 stipulations, is there a second?
I'll second it.
From Mr. Lowe, and then Mr. Aston seconded. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes 4-1 and 1. Again, this is a recommending body. It will be forwarded to the Board of Commissioners at 2 o'clock for final dispensation. If you have an interest, the applicant must be present. If you have an interest in it, you should be. And if everybody is staying, that's fine, but if you wish to leave before we go to the next zoning agenda item, please do so now, and we'll wait for your departure.
Mr. Chairman, I was wondering if we could take a short intercession.
I need a vote to go into, I need a motion to go into a recess.
Make a motion to take a short intercession for 5 minutes.
Motion
Second.
5 minute for Mr. Aston, second from Mr. Lowe. All in favor? Motion passes 5-0-1. And we're back. If everybody would please take your seat. Hello. If you would please take your seat so we can get going. Am I not on? Y'all are gonna make my boss mad. All right, Mr. Robinson, if you would, please.
Okay. Next application, 2019-16Z, application by Shamaz Rupani to rezone approximately 7.83 acres from R2 suburban residential to, we actually have B1 is what's advertised, to B1 general business. for a convenience store gas station. Property is located in land lots 356, District 2, Section 3. It's on the north side of Jimmy Campbell Parkway, also known as US 278. And it's just to the side of Homer Cochran Road. It's post 4. We've had one person call, came in person with questions, no noted opposition, and it's recommended approval with one stipulation.
One. Wow. If you would please have the applicant come around.
Gentlemen.
If you would please sign in, state your name, and address your comments to the chair.
Change that out, but just right there.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Greg Dewberry. I'm a land surveyor and a civil engineer. My office is located in Bremen, Georgia. I am speaking on behalf of Mr. Rapani this morning. My firm has been contracted to do the survey and site design work for this project. As you can see from the conceptual design we have here, we're going to be using approximately 4 acres of this tract. The back portion of the property is largely separated by an existing stream as well as floodplain and buffers. So with this project, it seems like to me there will be an assurance of some green space remaining. Current facility is for a gas station convenience store with also an automatic car wash located in the back. This conceptual is pretty much a maximum design, meaning we may not need this many fuel pumps, parking spaces, all that'll be determined later. We just wanted to be able to present the Planning and Zoning Board of what we felt like might be the maximum impact to the community. If you look at this area, this does lie along your corridor of growth, being along US Highway 278. I've made some measurements. This gas station will be the last one before you get to the Paulding County line for about 5 miles. So we're 5 miles to the east of the Paulding-Polk County line. And if you head eastward from here, there is one gas station at Highway 120 and 278 intersection. However, it does not have an entrance onto 278. If you'll have to go back another 3 miles to get to the QT at the intersection of 278 and 61. So as far as spacing goes, we feel like that this is not too abusive to the needs of the community, in that the spacing is pretty much adequate for what there are. Our market study shows that we have approximately 22,000 vehicles a day just in the westbound direction. So we definitely feel like there's a need there for servicing vehicles with fuel and other items that they may need. We will be on Paulding County water, but we will be on septic facilities here due to our location. We are not close enough to tap into City of Dallas facilities.
Are there any questions to the applicant from the Planning Commission? First, you see the one listed stipulation. You're in agreement with that from the staff?
Yes, sir, we are.
Any questions to the applicant?
I do have a question to staff. Isn't this within the City of Dallas's sewer line? Are you familiar?
This is within the City of Dallas sewer service area.
That's what I thought, because the proximity to the Sweetwater Creek, I'd like to see the stipulation that is on sewer.
Yes, sir.
Because Sweetwater Creek right behind the facility. And
right.
The possible
or Pumpkin Vine, I believe Pumpkin Vine, but yes, sir. But you're right, I understand.
Pumpkin Vine is right behind there.
Understand, yes, sir.
And I'd like to see it on sewer
yes, sir.
compared to on septic because of the possibility of having, you're already gonna have a runoff problem
right.
with possible contamination.
Yes, sir.
So I wouldn't like to see
right.
the septic on that property. I'd rather see it on.
We haven't had any discussions with the City of Dallas as far as how do we get there. Is that something right. they're wanting a joint venture with us on, or how, do we need to obtain the rights to reach their facility? That's something we would have to look at.
So the property owner would be okay with it being stipulated to be on City of Dallas sewer?
Just a minute.
Sure. You'd be okay. I need to put if available. You might need to put if available. But maybe in the sewer area, the line is right by it.
Yeah, the top of the hill is that's subdivision.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sorry, sir, I had to explain that we may be having to cross private property in order to reach the Dallas facilities, and I wanted to make sure that would be within his budget and market study. And it is, yes, sir.
So you're agreeable to the added stipulation?
Yes, sir.
Any other questions to the applicant from the planning commission?
I'd like to say one thing, that after taking a trip to Cincinnati last year, had not been able to find a gas station. You just don't understand how lucky we are having them on every corner.
Right.
We like never found one up there.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Henson?
You haven't talked with the city of Dallas yet concerning being on the sewer line?
No, sir, we just
Westwater?
we just wanted to get to this stage to see if it would even be, conceptually possible to, we haven't acquired the site yet. We're still working on that.
Any other questions to the applicant from the planning commission? Board of Commissioners?
I'd just like to add the comment of Mr. Henson and Mr. Leggett. There's been a couple of situations, applications, that also required connection with the sewer.
Yes, sir.
And it's very costly.
Yes, sir. And so we may find out in the end that, this project won't move forward. We didn't feel like that would prevent us from at least appearing before you today and getting, that your approval that, yes, that with your stipulations, if we could swing it, we would move forward with the project. But obviously, we still have some conversations and some dollar figures to work out on the back end.
Any other questions from planning commission, or from Board of Commissioners?
Well, I just kind of curious here, we're talking about, and I don't, follow me on this, you've not purchased the property, but we're asking for a rezone. And it's a stipulation.
I'm sorry, I apologize, I've been out of the loop just a little bit. We have purchased the property.
So the property is yours, okay.
You have it, Jim? You have it not? Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
It was contingent on this process.
Okay, so my concern is if there's a stipulation that's put forward that says that it requires connection to City of Dallas sewer, and in your further discussions decide that is not something that we can afford to do, crossing private lines, it's too long, it's too far, it's too much, whatever, and you decide not to pursue the project, then we've then rezoned a piece of property that you don't own, that you're not going to use. Is there an appropriate way to handle this, I guess would be the question to you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Phillips?
Mr. Chairman, the existing stipulation says that owner applicant acknowledges this property is within the City of Dallas sewer service area. So if I am understanding correctly, the issue is whether or not he will stipulate to, it could be one, will he agree that it's mandatory he must connect to City of Dallas sewer, or is it two, he will connect to City of Dallas sewer if required pursuant to the City of Dallas sewer requirements. I'm just looking for clarification whether this is a mandatory agreement. He will connect to the City of Dallas sewer, or will he connect to it if it's reasonably available? And I want to make sure that we clarify what the applicant is agreeing to at this point in time.
Can you clarify that?
Yes, sir. The applicant will agree to tie into the City of Dallas facilities. We hope to be able to work with them on a cost basis that would help both sides, but we will stipulate to that. I think it would be much better for our facility as well, especially since we are having an automatic car wash with a heavy water load usage. I think that would probably be the best for us.
And I think that the question raised by Mr. Davis, and you can correct me if I am wrong, is that if such zoning is approved, and if it becomes an untenable agreement for them where they cannot move forward with the development, then we're sitting here with a piece of property zoned for that intended use that is not going to have that use on it. Is there a way to make the zoning contingent upon successful development of the property? Is that what you were asking?
Yeah, because we have, once it's rezoned, there's a time period that must lapse before it can be zoned again. So if the seller is trying to sell it to this buyer and that stipulation ends up not working out for this buyer, then the seller could be in a situation that they may not want to be in, where it's zoned a certain way and can't be changed until I think it's a year has lapsed. And so I don't want to, I want to be careful that we're not putting a burden on the seller unintentionally if things don't work out with their plans.
Is there a way to mitigate that?
What I've seen in the past is, I want to make sure that I'm understanding the issue that's raised here. When there's a denial of zoning, there is a mandatory waiting period where no one can seek rezoning in the event of a denial. In this case, assuming there's an approval of zoning with these stipulations in there, let's assume that it passes, and then let's assume the future sellers or future owners, they want to do something and it's inconsistent with whatever current zoning stipulation is in place regarding sewer. At that point in time, I believe it would be appropriate for that applicant to come back seeking a removal of a certain stipulation, whatever it happens to be. I know that in the past year we've seen that happen with a couple of parcels, maybe one, maybe two, that were zoned certain ways with some stipulations that essentially were old and outdated and didn't need to bind the property anymore. And those stipulations were approved to come off. Often it's difficult to look into the future to try to put those conditions in place if the current owner's plans don't pan out. But I do believe there's a mechanism to do that through subsequent rezoning or subsequent variance requests.
There's no mandatory waiting period if it is an approved zoning for them to come back. They could come back within 6 months.
Correct. It's the denials that have the mandatory waiting period.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Davis?
That answers my question perfectly. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the Board of Commissioners to the applicant? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else wishing to speak on behalf of this application? Is there anyone here that wishes to speak in opposition to this application? At this time, I will entertain a motion with regard to application 2019-16-Z, and consider there's already one stipulation and there may be an added.
Motion to approve with the one printed stipulation and a rewording of the second one that he will connect sewer if it's reasonable.
I have a motion to approve with the one stipulation and an added stipulation regarding connection to City of Dallas sewer service area if reasonably capable.
Like close and from a money standpoint.
All right. Do you get that?
Missed the very last.
What was the last thing you said?
Like if it's not going to be $7 million for him to connect to the sewer.
A reasonable cost?
Yeah.
Is the cost that we're looking for? Okay.
Do you want to define reasonable? Is that what the question is?
No, just a comment. I believe there's just a motion, not a second.
It is just a motion at this moment.
At this time, I would say, if there's an ordinance out there that's requiring mandatory sewer,
well,
it doesn't matter what the cost is.
Let me ask you that. If there is that ordinance, with you're within 300 feet, is it? It's something like that of a sewer line. Paulding County requires you to tap to that sewer, but can you require that in that case that the sewer is owned by another government agency?
It will be whoever has jurisdictional control over sewer in that area. And I don't know the answer to that on this particular parcel.
There you go.
Let me also say, just for clarification on Mr. Lowe's motion, just so everyone's clear, the agenda shows B2 there. Mr. Robinson indicated that the application was amended, so it's B1. I'll make sure everyone's aware of that.
Okay. So at this point, we have a motion to approve from Mr. Lowe with the listed stipulation and then the addition of one for connection to the sewer system, provided that it is of reasonable cost.
And of course, that would be trumped by any mandatory ordinance for either the county or the city.
Okay. So is there a second to that motion? I'm not hearing one. Therefore, the motion fails. Is there a second motion to be made regarding this application?
Motion to approve with the one printed stipulation.
I have a motion to approve with the one listed stipulation. Is there a second? I can't second. Okay. The motion fails. Is there a motion in any other regards to this application?
I make a motion to approve with the stipulation that it's mandatory use into the Dallas City sewer system.
That is the added stipulation?
That is the added stipulation.
And you're approving it with the current stipulation as well?
Yes.
Just want to clarify.
I'll second that.
I have a second from Mr. Aston. That motion was made by Mr. Leggett. All in favor? Motion passes 5-0 and 1. Again, this application will be forwarded to the 2 o'clock session of the Board of Commissioners. You will need to be present as the applicant for it to be considered. Mr. Robinson.
Next application is 2019 17Z, application by PTR Holdings LLC to rezone approximately 1.45 acres from R2 Suburban Residential District to B2 Highway Business District for a landscape contracting facility. Property is located in land lot 21, District 2, Section 3. It's on the north side of Industrial Boulevard North, northwest of Dallas Ackworth Highway. It's in Commission Post 4. Staff is recommending approval. I believe it's one stipulation.
There's 3 stipulations there.
3 stipulations. With 3 stipulations, and we've had no noted opposition. Applicant is present.
We have an applicant. Please come forward, sign in, state your name, and address your comments to the chair.
Good morning. My name is Nick Fields, and I am the owner of PTR, and I'm looking to purchase this property. I have it currently under contract with a contingency on the rezoning. And what I'm looking to do is I'm currently in 2 different places with my landscape company, and I'm trying to consolidate into one and use it as basically a housing facility for my employees and my equipment. Currently, the property is vacant. It's got 2 vacant houses on it and a couple of barns. It's kind of grown up and everything. So, but we're looking to use it for future growth, to be able to get out of the leased property we have and be scattered everywhere. It's that's pretty much the gist of what we're looking to do. Really.
All right. You're familiar, sir, with the 3 stipulations recommended by staff, and you're agreeable
Yes,
to
sir.
those?
Yes, sir.
Are there any questions to the applicant from the Planning Commission? Board of Commissioners, any questions?
Can I ask for a better description of stipulation number 3?
Ms. Ashmore, do you want to take that?
That if there is an accel decel lane, the required over the top of the water main, that the water main would be relocated out from under the pavement.
That is if, right? Any other questions from the Board of Commissioners? Thank you, Mr. Fields.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else here wishing to speak on behalf of this application? Is there anyone here that would wish to speak in opposition to this application, may have questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, at this time, I will entertain a motion for application 2019-17-Z.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve from Mr. Lowe. Give me a second. I have a second from Mr. Henson. All in favor? Motion passes 5-0 and 1. Again, this will be forwarded to this afternoon's meeting at 2 o'clock of the Board of Commissioners for their consideration. Applicant needs to be present for it to be considered. And we have a final item on the agenda, which is a public hearing for the city located on the east side of Paulding, for the city of Hiram. So at this time, I will open the public hearing, as soon as I can get to the agenda, for the city of Hiram zoning ordinance text amendment. Mr. Robinson, do you want to present?
I will go ahead and read this and give a general description of what this does.
Thank you, sir.
The public hearing, City of Hiram zoning ordinance text amendment to Article 10, Section B, 5K reserved, self-storage and mini warehouse facilities accompanying resident manager living quarters, and Article 7, Section P, WW, warehouse and storage facilities, self-service storage facilities, mini warehouses, wholesale office, wholesale trade and distribution facilities, wholesale trade offices in conjunction with office showrooms. Mayor and Council of Hiram has asked, desires to amend their zoning ordinance, which it would eliminate these uses under Article 2 or Article 10, Section B, 5K in the special use chapter. It will eliminate many self-storage facilities as a special use in a B2 district. It also allows these facilities in a light industrial under Article 8, Section P, 2WW.
So the public hearing is now open. We have a representative from City of Hiram Zoning Administration. If you would like to make any comments.
I'd just like to second what Chris said. Yeah, we're just seeking some text amendments to basically keep the self-storage type facilities in a more appropriate area, which we feel is the light industrial, and to preserve our B2 for the intended use, which is highway business.
Is there anyone else that would wish to speak or be heard? They're one and the same here. At this time, I am going to close the public hearing for item number 4. It is 4, right? Item number 5, excuse me. And at this time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn from Mr. Aston, second from Mr. Leggett. All in favor? I'm assuming it was 5-0 and 1. It passes. We are adjourned.